Hi, this is Matt Trinka from Team SISU, and I thought I'd just make this tutorial for everybody who's wondering, looking for some tips on how to chop wood. There are some techniques that are helpful, also some equipment that you might need, and this is to help you in races such as the Death Race or the SISU Iron, which is taking place in Los Angeles in May 2014 this year. The first thing I'd like to talk about is equipment. There are several different types of axes or mauls that you can use for chopping wood. This is what we call a maul. This particular one I bought at Home Depot. It's about 8 pounds. It says there on the head of the maul, and it's got a plastic handle which I've decorated and taped up from lots of use. You can see that I sharpened the edge. It comes a little bit sharpened, but it's also pretty dull, so you could sharpen it, and I'll go into that a little bit more in a minute. It's also got a hammer head on one end, which is useful if you want to sledge, or if you want to use a splitting spike for the wood. And then you have an axe, or a splitter. This is the Fisker's X27, and it's got a plastic hollow handle, which makes it very light and easy to carry, so I prefer this one for most of my races. It comes with this nice cover to keep you from cutting yourself, makes it a little easier to carry during the race. And you see mine's taken a little bit of abuse. It's fairly resistant to damage, although I have seen the handles break before. And you can see the head of it has this nice shape to it that allows it to split the logs a little easier than maybe a standard axe. It's debatable, but the main advantage is that it is very light and it's very sharp. So those are two different types of axes for you to consider. This one, this heavy maul, I also like to use for training and for splitting up pine. You'll see there's different approaches for different wood. This one I would like to carry during races, and I find that it's a little better for splitting a variety of different wood. Over here we have some different tools that you would use. So I recommend using gloves if your hands are a little delicate, or if you want some protection. Also, eye protection is very important. Sunglasses, goggles, whatever you have on hand for the race, but make sure those eyes are protected from flying debris. And then you have a variety of sharpening tools. I've used anything from a Dremel with a sanding bit or a sharpening bit to a sharpening stone. And then Fisker makes this nice axe sharpening device here as well. And I'll go into how to use each of these here in a minute. Alright, for sharpening the axe, let's start with the sharpening stone. I'm going to use my Fiskers in this demonstration. You would sharpen it just like a knife, gripping the sharpening stone with one hand, putting it on a flat surface, and you want to push the axe away from you along the sharpening stone. You can use some polish or some liquid to make the stone a little more slippery so it polishes easier. But you basically just keep it going in one direction, put the axe at a nice 45 or 30 degree angle, somewhere between there, and just keep sharpening until you get a nice point. And then make sure you turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. Fiskars also makes this nice sharpener. It's pretty cheap, about $10 online. And for this, you would grab, make sure it's on a solid surface, you would grab one end of it here on the handle, put the axe head in the slot, and just basically go back and forth with it. In this case I'm using my left hand, so it's a little more challenging. But basically you want it to be so sharp that it can cut a piece of paper. I'll show you kind of what I mean here. So pretty sharp to the touch. It feels like it can almost cut you. It's almost as sharp as a knife. But that's how sharp you want your fiskars when you chop wood. Sharpening your maul is a little different story. It's going to be a little more blunt of an object because you're relying a lot more on how heavy the object is and a lot of force that you're generating. So the sharpness is not as critical as it is with an axe or a splitter. But for this purpose I usually use my Dremel, and I'll just sharpen it like this. And make sure you get both sides. So I'll turn it over and I'll sharpen the other side as well. Again, there are many other tools for doing this, but these are a couple methods that I prefer for sharpening my axes and my mauls. Okay, now you might be asking me, how do I train for chopping wood if I don't have wood? I mean, I'm in Southern California. Wood's pretty hard to come by. So one technique I like to use in my backyard is just find a ordinary car tire, or a bigger car tire is even better, and use your maul or a sledgehammer to practice hitting the tire with wood chopping strikes. And I'll demonstrate quickly how that looks, and then I'll go into some of the techniques for actually swinging the maul. Do's and don'ts for swinging a maul or axe. Let me first show you the couple improper techniques for swinging an axe, and then show you what I consider to be the preferred method. So here are some common methods that I see people doing that are not preferred. Okay, obviously that looks silly, but I see a lot of people doing it, and it doesn't generate much strength at all, and you'll end up putting a lot of pressure on your back. Another technique people like to do is what I call the windmill. So you see, in this case it's better. Using your wrists, and you're swinging the axe all the way around, you're leaving your hands on the handles the whole time. It doesn't generate as much force, and it does use a lot of energy. A more simple way is if you grip the axe on the handle and towards the top as you swing, and then when you come down, you slide your hand down the handle to the grip for maximum velocity and force. I'll demonstrate how that looks. Okay, so hopefully you can see the difference in how much force and velocity I was able to generate with that type of swing. The type of wood you're going to split is going to make a big difference in how you chop it. Here we see a piece of pine, and you can usually tell by looking at the bark. This one is going to be a lot easier to chop, and what I might do with this one is start on the outside, chopping off small segments of it. You never want to go right down the middle. I mean, it's easy and it's very tempting, and sometimes it works, but the majority of the time you're just going to end up digging your axe into the center of it without much benefit. So if you start on the outside and you kind of whittle away at it, in a circular pattern, that's the best technique for chopping most types of wood. But again, it depends on the type of wood. So if you have a piece of eucalyptus here, this is much harder wood. Again, you can see the bark is a little different on this one. And this is also a smaller log, so the approach on this one and it's taller. So you can look at the cracks in the wood and kind of use that to help figure out the best place to strike the wood and try to split it. That's a very useful technique. Otherwise, again, you can try to chipping off small pieces and working your way around until you get to the center. And then you sometimes have pieces like this, which I don't even know how to approach. This one's gonna give me a lot of trouble to try to split. Probably the best way to do it would be to take a chainsaw and hack off this limb first of all, and then try to tackle the big piece here. But sometimes you don't have that option, so you end up spending a lot of time with this kind of gnarly wood. But again, these three types of wood are just to illustrate how different your approach is going to be depending on the piece of wood that you're trying to chop. So right now I can hear a lot of you saying, these tips are great, Matt, but let's see you chop some actual wood. So I got my wood behind me, I got my eye protection, I got some gloves, and let's try chopping first with the maul and see how that works. Okay, so you see this wood is pretty hard. My maul did a pretty good job of chopping off two little corners of it, and as you can see, I'm working from the outside in. Now let's try using the axe. That worked really well. You might notice as you chop the wood that the pieces tend to fly every which way, which is why we wear eye protection. But it's a good idea when you're on your break to take the wood you've chopped and put it into a nice tidy pile. Another good idea is to use a car tire around your piece of wood if it will fit, and this keeps the pieces of wood together as you chop them. It's a good idea if you have a piece of wood that's a little taller. Mine's kind of short and the tire impedes the progress of the axe through the wood, but I'll give you a quick demo on how this works. There you can see the damage that I did to the remaining wood and how the tire kept it pretty much within that little area and protected those around me from getting hit with any splinters. Okay, that concludes this installment of Team SISU Tips. Hope you enjoyed it and learned a little bit about splitting wood, and wish you good luck at your next competition.